Hi, welcome back to part 9 of Summoner. And yeah, if you can talk to this old gent here, he'll inform you of the story. But again, we do have a few more side quests to complete. And that can be a bit annoying whenever you go into a new area and they swamp you with side quests, but to be fair, they are optional. You know, I have no one to blame but myself. But talk to this guy here, and he should give you the key to the bookshelf, which you'll need to get for the next dungeon here. And he'll also inform you of the backstory about the 13 clans, the 10,000 years of chaos. Because just to refresh you about the mythology, once your great angelic god Uraf died, was killed and betrayed by his sister, the whole land went into 10,000 years of chaos and civil war. And eventually one king came to rule them all, and that's how we get the land of Mediva. Anyway, this is the sister Bilan, and she'll give you the quest of to follow the Wanderer. And essentially she'll give you a book here, and when we go to Mediva, we just find that person and give the book to that person. But yeah, I'll remind you when it happens again in the story, of course. So, fairly simple, just keep the book on you. And it is an interesting story here, where Sister Bilan was part of the elite of Aurenia, but when the evil Emperor Murhod came to power, she had to flee for her life. So, yeah, it's just nice that we get backstory. We see how these big events affect people, like, you know, wars, gods, emperors. It's nice to see what effect they have on the common man. Anyway, moving on, we see this guy here called Brother Wid, this rather timid-looking gentleman, and he's suffering from this horrible nightmare. So next time we're in the catacombs, or when we're in the catacombs, we just need to do a bit of tomb raiding and give him an artifact. And yeah, the particular item we're looking for is the axe of somebody. Fairly simple. I mean, unlike the sewers, this next dungeon will be fairly light on the side quests. Just one or two items we need to find. Out and up here is the Uraf Feather, a sacred relic we need to return to the Temple of Uraf to stop a holy war between these two groups. And that's kind of odd, that feather, when you think about it, because that's essentially a piece of a god. Or is it? You know? But nevertheless, it is quite a weird thing to have in context of this game, because they're telling us gods exist, and we're holding a piece of a god. So, yeah, kind of weird. Anyway, Novice Sama, this is kind of a little side quest here. It's fairly interesting. She accidentally took a sacred book, and she needs to return it without anyone else knowing that she took it, of course. Now, the thing is, what you can do with this side quest is when you talk to the first of all, you ask her for the book and you return it to the people. But when you talk to the other people, you don't have to tell them where you got this book from, or you can tell them where you got this book from. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't really make a difference. You get the experience for completing the side quest anyway. But anyway, when I am playing these sort of games, I do like to role play essentially, and sort of. When I answer these questions, I do say I don't know where I got it from. I just say I found it, because you know Sam made a mistake, and you know, I'm just trying to cover it up. I'm a nice kind of guy. Yeah, and you know, this guy's pretty cool about it as well. He's like, well, you should really tell me, but it's probably best for your friend that I don't know who it is. Which, you know, a lot of games have a morality system, and I do wonder, would that be considered good or bad morality? Because essentially you're covering up a thief's identity, but at the same time, it would be really bad to tell on Sama. So, you know, would that be a good choice or a bad choice? Anyway, looking through these bookshelves to pick up a few spells here and there. You know, granted, are we just borrowing these? You know, do I need a library card? Oh, here it is, volume 67, which is the second book you need for the Encyclopedia of Heresies. You know, I'm doing a Let's Play of Pokemon White, and funnily enough, that has a library in there as well, so I find that interesting. Libraries show up in RPGs. Ugh. You know, I want to get a book, but all they have is Stephanie Meyer. You know, if reading the words of the gods won't turn you blind, reading Stephanie Meyer will. But anyway, just open it up and go inside. Oh wait, no, the bookcase went down again. Oh, now I should point out, before you enter the tombs, there is a little puzzle you have to complete here. And if you talk to one of the monks up there, he actually tells you how to complete it. It says you need to ask for wisdom off one of the kings, and strength off the other. And if you look at these statues, one is holding a book and one is holding an axe. But unfortunately, the camera in this game makes this puzzle a little more tricky than it should be. But eventually I do manage to select the correct kings. And I swear, I do know which statues to select, I just can't see what they're holding. But anyway, we just pop down into the catacombs. And this is actually a really cool location here. We see the 13 kings around us. Now, just to go through the party members here, now we have Rosalie, which I haven't really talked about. Again, I equipped the Fiery Falcon on Joseph because the enemies in this dungeon have a weakness to fire and ice, so that's always beneficial. But to talk about Rosaline as a playable character, she's essentially your spellcaster slash healer. She learns fire, ice, energy spells, and she also learns healing and holy spells. So, yeah, healer, buffer, sorcerer, she's all 3 in 1. Now the downside to Rosaline is that she is fairly weak. She can only take a couple of hits. And in fact, you see her now, she has the bow. What I mean is, she has the staff, which means that she will actually try and attack enemies with her staff. You know, fight the melee style, which is a bad idea. So at some point she will learn the bow ability, and she is better off with a bow. Because you'll see as I'm playing this, when your ally has an AI, if she has a bow, she will automatically run away from enemies to launch the bow at a distance. And for someone like Rosaline, who can only take a couple of hits, that's beneficial. That's what you want her to do. You don't want her up in people's faces. But anyway, here we are introduced to the bone servants slash bone knights. Lots of bones here. And they do show off why you need to develop blunt weapons in this game primarily, because most of the enemies you fight will have a weakness towards blunt. But unfortunately we all have swords at this point. But on the upside, they are also weak against fire and ice type moves. Although you can see here that Rosaline uses energy, which is just does normal damage really. So yeah, again, the enemy AI, when it comes to casting spells, won't cast the spells they're weak against. But unfortunately, fortunately, this dungeon isn't too hard. It has a fairly simple layout, you won't get lost too much. The enemies are fairly weak, and also they have a weakness you can take advantage of. Look, you can see here, I'm essentially using Joseph as a pyromaniac. Although, when I think about it, it really doesn't make sense for skeletons to be weak against fire and ice. I guess you could argue that maybe they're so dry, fire would do more damage, but ice, it probably shouldn't really affect them at all. But I was saying that I think it's for obvious reasons. It's for balance, so you're not faced against these enemies where you don't really have a decent way of fighting them. So yeah, they're just given a weakness for balance sake. And I think at this point I want to show off the summoning ability. Now, if I wasn't recording, I wouldn't really bother summoning. But I guess if you're curious about the game, you want to see the summons shown off. Now, something about the summons, which is mentioned, like in the game, in the game text and the manual, and they say that summons gain power over time. And I'm not sure this game is finished, because I don't think that's true. Anyway, maybe someone who's played the game a lot more than I have could tell me. And also, they say they gain power over time. Does that mean, like, for example, I summoned Blackfire Elemental here. So if I keep summoning Blackfire Elemental every time, and he gains experience or something, does that mean that he'll become more powerful? Because I was gonna say, these summons, they start off really weak, and I'm not sure if they do get more powerful over time. And honestly, I'm just happy to use the 4 main party members. I think they're a lot more useful. Now this is sort of a tactic you can see I'm doing here again. It's where I use a fire arrow and try and separate these party members. But of course this game has wonderful enemy AI, so you can see my Blackfire Elemental just runs off without me. But nah, he thinks he's a pretty tough guy. Well, you could argue this could be a positive move, because you can see that even though he doesn't do that much damage, at least he's keeping the other enemies distracted. So, if he's attacking like a mage, he's stopping that mage from casting spells. So that could be useful. And speaking of which, that is sort of an enemy formation we got introduced in this dungeon. Where we have these mages which will cast heal and other spells against you. And it's just good advice when you're fighting these types of enemies, or, these groups. Go for the white mage, go for the healer. And I guess the same is true for your party. Keep your healer out of harm's way, if you can. Now up here in this little secret hidden cache, you get some cool items, like some gold. A chainmail tunic, which is very useful. Now when it comes to these armors, you can get armor which you equip separately to your leg and torso. But you can also get these sort of one-piece armors, which apply to both your torso and chest at the same time. And I would say, up until the last part of the game, it is best to just have separate pieces of armor. You'll see why later on.